On this episode of Food News and Chews, Chef Jeremy and Sylvia have their sights set on higher education at Moonshine University. Then Chef Jeremy makes sorghum marinated pork chops with a moonshine and green tomato chutney. That's today on Food News and Chews. Food News and Chews is brought to you by these proud sponsors. Alltech, helping farmers feed the world. Azure Restaurant and Patio, worldly influenced, locally inspired. Sullivan University, offering higher education for people with higher goals. Azure Catering, catering the most important events, yours. Critchfield Meats, fresh, high-quality, all-natural meats, guaranteed.
What are you looking at?
You know, Sylvia, based on the topic of our show today, I think you're probably up to no good and going to try to make some moonshine.
I am making sugar cookies. Now, here are the ingredients. Sugar, corn, yeast.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like the fixings for a good old-fashioned still there. So, and I just want you to know, you don't look good in stripes either. You're about to just break about 12 laws and felonies too, so it's not going to be a good situation.
Okay, so I guess I better go back to the highly lucrative job of television tech co-hosting, huh?
That's right, but we have an interesting topic today, right?
We do. We're going to talk about legal moonshine. Is there such a thing?
That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as legal moonshine. It wouldn't taste
as good, would it?
Now, we have learned that
Not that I've ever tasted it.
There are brands out there now that are labeled moonshine, but that's just a gimmick, really. I mean, moonshine itself, there's no legal moonshine. You can't produce or distill anything, not even 1 ounce, not even 1 drop.
Tiny little bit.
At home without having it regulated, having all the fees or all the permits
taxes,
and all the taxes.
Those little things.
It's just not happening. There's no legal way to do what you're about to, get involved in. So
yeah. Well, okay. I've reformed. I've reformed, but it rivals the oldest profession as a local food.
Right. Well, in our region and through the South, through Appalachia, I mean, this has been a serious business. I mean, up in the hills, there's been moonshine going on for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And it has an interesting name, too. I mean, but, it's also across the world, right?
Oh yeah, because it's like, here's some names. Moonshine, White Lightning, Mountain Dew. Mm-hmm. Mountain Dew, that's cute.
Firewater.
Palenka, Romania and Hungary. Chacha, Rakia, Ouzo, and Grappa.
See, Ouzo and Grappa, yeah, I've had plenty of that, too. So.
You'll see, you're not such an innocent.
Right. But, it's got an interesting name, say moonshine, and that actually has some history in our area, too, right?
That's right. It's about... it stands for moonrakers used by smugglers to get it out by the light of the moon in the Appalachian Hills.
So you're working,
in the movies, you see the big moon overhead, and they're moving these
down Copperhead Road, right? So you're doing something bad under the moonlight, trying to get it done and run down the road with it, right?
Yeah.
Bootleg it.
Hey, Jeremy, one of the things that we want to make sure we cover in food news is the idea that this is explosive. I mean, people, and it does can catch on fire. By the way,
do not try this at home.
It is such a high proof, but also used in cooking.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
how
why
often
not?
A
lot of people use alcohol in cooking, in a lot of forms, whether it's just infusions at the end of a recipe that give you the flavor, desserts and baking, it's highly useful. But moonshine itself, why not? I mean, we've got a recipe in this episode for a green tomato moonshine chutney.
All right.
That is,
I'm with you.
Out of this world. So I can't wait you to try it if you can get your hands on it.
It might be even better than my sugar cookies that I'm about to make.
Right. I've never used yeast in cookies, Sylvia.
Well, some of it's pizza yeast, but it all works the same way, doesn't it?
Well, whenever I have moonshine, I usually want some pizza after it.
But there are health hazards, and people should be very careful about going back to old Papa, you know, what is the show now, Moonshiners on Discovery Channel, and Tim Jim or Tim Bob or somebody, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, be careful out there. Actually, don't even attempt it out there. But it is an interesting process to learn because there's a lot of complexity to distilling.
Yeah.
You know, how this whole process works. So we're going to find that out.
Yeah, and an interesting one interesting thing is every time one of those episodes shows from the Moonshiner show, there's a spike in sales of stills. Now, the vendors get pretty defensive and they start saying, well, you know, they're just probably making fuel.
Now, what does that mean, they're making fuel? You can actually make gasoline out of a still or something like that?
Yeah, apparently it's so volatile that you can actually, I mean, it can cross the line if you don't take out all the other stuff like methanol that's poisonous.
Right.
So, you know, I'm sure that's what people are doing, Jeremy.
Yeah, right.
You know it.
Well, I mean, as long as you're keeping your full in a big jug with a cork on top of it.
Hey, Jeremy, I got a great idea.
What?
I may be an old gal, but I want to go back to school. Let's go back and let's go to Moonshine University. What do you say?
I think it's a great idea. I've heard a lot of things about it, and I want to get to know what this process is about. You know?
Okay, well, let me take all my ingredients and we'll just go.
Yeah, I'm sure they want to use that. But you know what? At least we can bake cookies afterwards.
Absolutely. Degree in liquorology. Moonshine University.
That's a perfect term. Well, at least we're in the right place too, because we're here with Kevin Hall. He's the senior operations manager for what's the Distilled Spirits Epicenter, which actually is made up of a few different things, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's we have 3 different things that make up Epicenter, and that's Moonshine University, Grease Monkey Distillery, and Challenge Bottling.
So Moonshine University.
I love it. Hey, I have an initial question though.
Okay.
When you were 5 years old, did you look up at your mom and say, I want to grow up to be the operations manager at Moonshine University?
No, but she probably would have been glad I just had a job. So, you know.
I got you,
What do you do here? What is it?
So basically what we do is we develop, here we train people that are opening craft distilleries around the country. And we do some training for the larger industry as well. But really our focus are the people that are opening craft distilleries, and it's really been booming around the country, kind of like craft brewing did 20 years ago.
Sure.
And there's no place for them to go to learn how to do it right, how to open and operate a distillery. So that's Louisville and Kentucky are really kind of the natural epicenter of distilling industry in the U.S.
Which is the big name, and then the 3 pieces.
Precisely. So we try and leverage the resources that are already here to bring them together in one place where people can come and get hands-on experience in operating distillery and learn from real industry experts. So this is Grease Monkey Distillery, and it's just like any of the big distilleries you may have been to on a tour or whatever. But on a much smaller scale, so it's really easy for us to teach people how the process works from start to finish. So you get your whole grains in and you put them in this mill.
Put corn cobs in there?
No, not cobs. Not cobs. You're gonna put that in there and mill it. At that point, it's gonna go up this little screw elevator and drop it into this vessel here, which is our cooker. So we fill this up with water and we start warming it up. We get the water up to about 100 degrees. That way the grain will go into solution a little bit easier.
Okay.
So you start adding that milled grain, you're agitating it constantly, and you continue to heat it up. So you heat it up to boiling to 212 degrees.
Right.
And basically what that's going to do for you is it's going to plump all those starches up that are in that grain. It's going to really make them fat and juicy. So you've got this kind of oatmeal-y consistency type thing, and then you just start dropping the temperature, and you get it down to 140, 135 degrees, and you're going to add malted barley at that point. And what that does is it has enzymes that convert those starches that you've exposed. It converts those starches to sugar, and without sugar you can't make alcohol. So once we've dropped the temperature on this, we add our yeast. We're going to pump it to a fermenter. So if you've been to one of the big distilleries, it may be a giant cypress vat. It's all bubbly and smells delicious. And it'll let you stick your finger in it and taste it and all that. Same thing, way smaller. At this point, it's beer. And it is a giant still, and again, it's hot. So this is a 250-gallon pot still. and it's got a jacket on it, so it's double hulled from about here down, and it's got steam recirculating through it. And what that's going to do, so distillation is basically just separation of compounds based on differences in their boiling point. So alcohol boils before water, so it's going to evaporate first. So as this starts to bubble and boil, the alcohol starts to evaporate. So the alcohol evaporates up through this column and over to this piece of equipment here, which is a shell and tube condenser, and it has that same chilled water that we used at the cooker through here. So there's 40-degree water, the vapor hits those tubes, it condenses, and it turns back into liquid. So once that product condenses, it comes over to this, comes down through here into this tank. You're going to do on a pot still, you're going to distill twice. The first time is what they call, you make low wines, and you're going to end up with a product that's going to be around 70 proof, something like that. So not really high enough to put in a bottle. So you're going to do a couple of those types of runs, and then you're going to take those low wines that you've made, and you're going to put them back in the, you're going to clean the still out, put them back in the still, and distill it again. This time it's going to bump the proof up significantly, and you're going to, the first stuff that comes over are called heads. They're the most volatile compounds, and they're kind of acetone, methanol, those types of things. They boil at a very low boiling point, and they're not really desirable in a finished product. They taste bad. Methanol can make you go blind. That's the whole, you've heard, go blind from drinking moonshine. That's where that comes from. So this vessel is divided into 3 sections internally. So as the first stuff that comes over, you stand here, you taste it, you say, yeah, that's headsy, I don't want it. So you're gonna configure these valves so that it drops into this small section of this tank internally. When you get to the point that it's cleaned up and it starts tasting like corn, it tastes really nice, you just switch these valves, and we call it making the heads cut. And then it's into what's called the hearts, which is the bulk of the distillation, and that's what's gonna give you your final product. And then toward the end of the distillation, you start getting into the tails, which again are not pleasant, not something you necessarily want in your finished product. So you make another valve configuration change, and you separate the tails.
So this, like, what we call
this
like
is
a white dog?
this is new make, just coming off the still.
Is this?
So clean. Huh. It's not what I expected. It's just kind of clean and mellow.
It's like almost water.
Doesn't have like very, very.
Yeah, it is.
It is water.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Where do you find your professors? Do you scour Eastern Kentucky hills and find Tim, Bob,
Yeah. Well, Tim's,
Shot? Oh, these are all characters right away.
Overqualified.
yeah. Actually, those guys have been here. We actually taught a couple of the guys from Moonshiners at class. They've been here. But really, our instructors, like I said, we try and leverage the resources that are here. So the Kentucky Distillers Association, which is made up of, the board is made up of all the big distillers, amended their bylaws to make us their exclusive education provider member.
Nice.
And then they help provide us with resources to teach the classes. So we have their master distillers, their operators, coming in and helping teach the class. So over the course of a week, we have over 30 presenters coming in.
Is moonshine that much different to make than other kinds of distilled spirits?
It's a fanciful name, so it can be made from anything. It could be anything from like 100% corn whiskey that's pure grain, which is kind of on the high end, to something that's just made with sugar. Basically, you could just take sugar and add yeast and ferment it.
So alcohol from your backyard as well.
So basically, yeah. So it can be a wide range of things.
Few legalities behind that too, right?
Well, yeah.
Like no legalities.
Well, there are legalities. It's just
Right.
which side of it you're on.
And
so
when
it's-
you teach, I think you said earlier, you make sure people know that moonshine has traditionally been made illegally.
That's correct.
And people are now making stuff in their homes, but they still can't escape the fact that it has to be legal.
That's right.
And you teach that.
There's a real misunderstanding out there because it is legal to make beer and wine at home under a certain volume.
Okay. No distilled.
Distilled spirits, it is illegal to distill anything in the United States without a federal state permit.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter if you're making a pint, it's illegal.
Yeah.
And we make sure that our people know that.
I think you said that's like the first
Because
thing.
when you have a name like Moonshine University, you have to be,
Well, yeah,
you know,
'cause,
this is not,
Papa walks in and
Yeah.
Jim, Tom, or whatever.
Responsible education.
yeah, responsible education.
Okay, guys. So here's the white dog. Let's give this a taste.
do it.
Right?
Let's do it.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Wow. Woo! Whoa, buddy.
Mama.
All right, I'll see y'all later.
No doubt. That is the real deal. I can't wait to cook with that. Thanks a lot for touring us.
Yeah,
You know, this is-
absolutely. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you
It's a
so
pleasure meeting
much.
you
We'll be
guys.
back. We'll be in the seats.
Yeah, come take a class.
Man.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
You know, the best part of all these ingredients is right here.
Careful there. That is barrel-aged moonshine, and that's what you call the old white, the white lightning, white dog. What do you want to call it? Powerful stuff there.
Whoa.
Uh-huh.
Woo. Okay, I'll see you later, Jeremy.
Well, of course, it's the Moonshine Show, and I love cooking with moonshine. It's one of those things we've had around in our area for.
Yeah, I know you
know,
and
a long
moonshine.
time.
Right.
Yeah,
I know
moonshine.
we both hail from Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
We know about the
Exactly.
moonshine.
So we're going to use it in a chutney in a little bit
Okay.
with these pork chops. But first we got to make our sorghum marinade for the pork chops. I've been using this recipe for about 10 years, and I think it's a really, really neat, smoky, rich marinade for pork
Yummy.
and chicken.
Okay, we've got a lot of things going on here.
We do. This is a neat recipe. So we got to start with a marinade for our pork chops. We're going to do these for about 4 hours
Yeah.
in a marinade. So we got to get started.
Okay, and then we grill them
we're
after
gonna grill them,
Yeah,
and then
that's
the chutney
right.
is
That's
quick
right.
to go.
That's why we don't have we have a little stove.
So for our marinade,
Okay.
I'm going to grab this big bowl in front of you and move the moonshine so you guys can see really well. I'm going to use some tomato juice, about a half a cup.
Uh-huh.
Then go into about a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar.
Okay, I've heard that's actually used in a lot of recipes.
I use
Apple
it in a lot
cider
of things,
vinegar.
yeah. It's also known for its health qualities. If you take a little spoonful in your water every day, it's supposed to do amazing things for you.
Oh, I don't know if I can stand that. I'd rather do the moonshine. Does that do the same thing?
I think so, yeah. So stone ground mustard, good 2 tablespoons of it.
Okay.
Then sorghum, not molasses, but
That smells
sorghum.
so good. You know, West Liberty, that's where I'm from, and that's
There
the
you
Sorghum
go.
Festival at the end of September.
So there's a big difference between sorghum and molasses. Molasses being from
Really?
cane sugar, and then sorghum, is cooked from a plant. Sorghum.
Yeah, my mother used to talk about sorghum plants.
Right.
And
now this is a minced or chopped up chipotle pepper. With the adobo sauce. Now this gives it a really neat, smoky, spicy quality that goes into the meat really well.
smells so good. We
Right?
need smell-o-vision.
Smell of it.
Yeah.
We're working on that one. And then this is nutmeg.
Okay.
Add that. Good tablespoon. Actually, no, more like a teaspoon of that.
Yeah. This is all the marinade.
This is the marinade, right? So it's kind of funky looking.
Now, when do
right?
we add this stuff?
Well, first of all, that's going to be for our chutney. But now we're going to add some citrus zest. One of these is called a microplane. You can use any kind of zester you want. But anyway, take the zest of an orange.
Oh, the
Add
what
that.
of an orange?
The zest. See how it's kind of shaving the zest off?
The zest, the peel.
Yeah, the peel. So gives it a
Fancy-wancy.
really neat citrus, bright citrus flavor. So we've got a little bit of that. Same thing for
Just
a
a
lime.
little bit. Don't need any
No, not
limes.
much.
How are limes doing these days? They got real expensive there for a while, huh?
Well, they're coming down. Now lemons are back up though. So here's it's like
Yeah.
gold right now. So
Really?
yeah, then lemon zest. And
Okay.
take some time. Go ahead and try
oh,
to
that smells good.
Go ahead and try to zest the entire thing. I mean, I'm just kind of rushing
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah, sure.
And if you don't have
Yeah, I
another
need to
use for
taste.
these, go ahead and cut them in half and squeeze the juice into your marinade.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I can't go wrong with
Can't
those
go
three
wrong with
things.
that.
That's right.
So
Okay.
we'll stir it up,
Oh, so this side is all the
marinade.
The marinade.
and then pork chops. We've got a nice little French pork chop here with the bone in. I like those.
What's Frenched mean?
French means the meat's been scraped from the bone and it's exposed there. It's a neat presentation.
Okay.
Plus, a bone-in pork chop. The bone is on the meat, adds more great grilling or flavor when you cook it. I love the reinforcement of flavor. So this goes into the marinade, and you could do a whole lot more pork chops or a whole lot more chicken with the recipe we're going to give you at foodnewsandchews.com. But this is what we're going to do for now.
Okay.
So while this marinates, we're going to go ahead and start our chutney. And this is where the good stuff comes in, right?
All right, buddy.
We're
with you, baby.
Kick on our pan and start with
moonshine.
Some of that moonshine.
Now, what kind is this?
This is a barrel age. So imagine like somebody, an amateur, trying to make bourbon, right? So they take this White Lightning and put it into a bourbon barrel or a charred barrel and age it, and it gets that
turns
color.
out like that.
And it's the same process as bourbon.
Hey, you know, is there such thing as legal moonshine?
Well, yes, there is. And
I know, and we've been covering that today, haven't we? We know, but there's also that old tradition kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
this stuff.
Right.
So I'm going to go with a cup of the real thing.
Okay.
And I use the barrel age. And then to that, I'm going to add another 1/4 cup of cider vinegar and sugar.
Don't feed this to your grandmother, right? Because she might get kind of...
Oh, she knows what this is all about.
I know, but she might fall off her walker or
went
something.
into my little baby bottle, you know, to go to sleep. So a good cup of sugar.
Yeah.
And we're going to let this really kind of start to cook. What's going to happen is after a while, the vinegar and sugar kind of combine together and create like a syrupy consistency.
Is there any trick to cooking? Because we're using a lot of bourbon now in recipes, and is there any trick to that as far as like how it reacts, like you know, to stuff, to heat?
Well, you know, of course there is the whole alcohol point. When there's a flame near it, it might explode. But other than that,
don't get it near the grill.
I like to use liquor and recipes a little bit at the beginning, and then just a touch at the very end that's not cooked or raw.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like, you know, bourbon itself, or moonshine, maybe it's apple pie moonshine or whatever flavor you have, does have an inherent flavor to it, right? So you can pick up some nuances when you cook it in your recipes.
Well,
but you want to reinforce it with just a dab of the raw, so it's really in your face.
And it's made, moonshine is made like using local fruits and things, which is why it's such a local food. You know, like in, there's an article, you know me, I'm a wonk, about Budapest, Romania, Hungary, all those places. Palinka. It's their moonshine. It's their version, and they have laws that that are being challenged to allow people to have small batches.
Well, sure.
And so much, but they have to have certain equipment and health standards. It's sort of like unpasteurized milk.
Well,
what does milk and
the
moonshine have in common?
Dangerous. You can really hurt people with this.
Yeah, like
but
blow your
if
face.
you don't have anything, you don't have a lot of resources. You use what's around in your area, right?
That's right. And fruit is a real common.
Yeah, it tastes good in alcohol.
That and over 50% alcohol, they say, in Romania and Hungary.
So it'll be over 100% proof, right? Just double it. So if you see the moonshine, the vinegar, the sugar, they're starting to kind of bubble, right?
Okay.
And as that cooks, it's going to get thick, and that's a process, magic, a TV thing we got to do here. But I'm going to go ahead and add green tomatoes, because I'm making a green tomato moonshine chutney. So a good cup, you could use more if you want. We'll add that to it. And then, that little microplane we used before?
Yeah.
I'm going to use it again with some ginger.
Okay. That's raw ginger, huh?
Fresh ginger. I'm going to give it a little tap to get it down in there. But, ginger is very, very spicy if you eat it raw.
Yeah.
Cooked in it, it's got an amazing, nuances and flavor in it. So I'm going to grate a little bit in there. If you could, take the time to do a good 2 tablespoons.
All right.
But you see it kind of floating, the pulp's floating in there and kind of mixing up and getting in there. Now, I'm going to add some more, some actual allspice and also some clove.
Okay. And they can find this recipe on foodnewsandchews.com, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can find this recipe online. I hope you guys just kind of wing it, and kind of do your own thing with it. But as this cooks, also we're going to do with a little bit of red onion. Now, one thing, and also we need to add some jalapeno. One thing I do suggest, though, is get all the wet ingredients in there, and then add the green tomatoes and cook it for a while with the spices.
Yeah, let them get real...
And then at the end, fold in the red onion and the jalapeno.
Gotcha.
And that kind of keeps those vegetables crisp. But we're going to kind of throw it all together and let this cook down while we hit the grill.
Yeah.
Because we got to go grill these pork chops off so we can top it with that.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, fresh off the grill, look at those stripes, how pretty.
You'll notice about this is the marinade really caramelizes from the sorghum, so you get the black char and it's smoky, and oh man, I love this marinade recipe.
Hey, got a myth you need to work with today. People say not to eat, you said something about medium to medium well? on this pork chop?
You know, I like a medium rare.
I know that, but the myth, or is it a myth, that you're not supposed to eat pork chops unless they're well done?
Okay, so it's not true anymore. Back in the 60s, there's this thing called trichinosis or whatever.
Right, whatever they are.
They haven't seen a case of that since the 60s. So the whole reason to cook pork all the way through to 165 or above was to kill that.
If it was there.
Now, if you prefer, I like a pork chop medium, which is going to be below that temperature. I cook a medium, I cook a mid-rare. I have never had a problem. I don't know anybody that has a problem.
Well, in part, it's the USDA inspection of meat now is healthier meat, right? Is that true?
Well, you know, we have kind of, that's the whole controversy with antibiotics and stuff like that, too.
Whether it is or not.
Anyway, opening a can of worms, but you heard it right here.
The worms.
You don't have to cook your pork chop till well done or medium well.
Yeah, you really don't, and I think it is modern processing that.
Exactly. So, nice.
That's one of our
chop.
friends in this case.
Go right on the plate.
Oh, how nice that looks! And then you've been simmering this.
This is the Moonshine and green tomato
smell it.
chutney, and that's a little bit hot. I'm going to grab the towel here.
Yeah.
Good juice here. You could reduce that more till it's really syrupy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go right on top with a big pile of chutney, and then get some more juice to kind of go over the
wow.
plate. Really cover this thing, you know, and we're going to keep it simple, no serious garnish. Now what you really should do with a nice grilled item like this in the summertime is find some local fresh vegetables and let them be the garnish. You know,
yeah,
you got the nice colors of all the vegetables, and that's all this needs. Grab that fork. Let's try this thing out.
Okay, and a knife, huh?
Yes, fork and knife.
Okay.
You got one.
There you go, guy.
Get yours. Here's another knife right there.
Okay, give it to me.
You got it. Okay, see what you think, Sylvia. This is a big bite for you, right?
It's big.
Can you do it?
Mm-hmm. Mmm.
Let's see.
Try this at home. This is good.
Man, that is good.
The trouble is, I can't close the show, Jeremy. This is so good. This is so good.
www.foodnewsandchews.com.
Find that recipe.
Get the recipe. I really want you guys to use this one. That is awesome.
We'll see you next time on Food News and Chews.
Food News and Chews is brought to you by these proud sponsors. Alltech, helping farmers feed the world. Azure Restaurant and Patio, worldly influenced, locally inspired. Sullivan University, offering higher education for people with higher goals. Azure Catering, catering the most important events. Yours. Critchfield Meats, fresh, high-quality, all-natural meats, guaranteed. If you would like a DVD copy of this episode of Food News and Chews, visit foodnewsandchews.com or email us at info@foodnewsandchews.com.